Greetings and welcome to another musical adventure in time travel. In this little episode, I'm going to show you some more about the wonders of just intonation versus equal temperament. Just intonation was wonderfully pure tuning used in antiquity, and it dates way back to around 5,000 years ago when the ancient Mesopotamians were inventing the very first fretted lutes. Now, the ancient Mesopotamians were very good at working out mathematical ratios. For example, they gave us our modern seconds and things, how we divide time up. And they did this with music as well. So in order to work out where to put frets on a fretted lute, you've got to divide the scale up. And they did this by dividing it up into really pure sounding, very symmetrical whole number ratios. The more whole number ratios they found, the purer the resulting intervals. Now, all this went a bit pear-shaped towards the time of J.S. Bach with the widespread use of equal temperament. Now, in equal temperament, there are irrational number ratios, which results in very slightly out of phase sort of intervals, very muddy sounding intervals to the trained ear. And the reason for our modern use of equal temperament is so we can transpose seamlessly between keys without any change of ratio between the intervals as we're doing that. All well and good for classical music, but a tragedy for the wonderful purity of the actual musical intervals. So I'm going to go back to that purity. Now, my first example of how to tune to just intonation, I use a rather complicated program called Scalar, which generates MIDI tones in just intonation, but it's very mathematical, and I'm not a mathematician, and someone very kindly actually sent me via email, a very knowledgeable chap called John Wheeler. He sent me the scalar tones, but these were specifically for a lyre tuned with the bottom note as C. This is my Marini-made Davidic harp, as it's called, although it's actually a lyre. But although they recommend a standard tuning of C, and I think it sounds slightly better in C, it's really not very good for the strings. I've been going through quite a lot of strings, so I've been experimenting with some non-standard tuning, taking it back a semitone and a bit. So instead of the bottom note being middle C, it's going to be B, but I'm also using a different reference pitch of A at 432 Hertz. Well, there's lots of new age nonsense about 432 Hertz, but I like to use it just basically because it's a very slightly lower reference pitch, and the very slightly lower pitch doesn't matter whether it's 432 Hertz, 431 Hertz, the resulting sound is a bit more relaxing on the ear. The more you increase the tension on an instrument, the more resulting feeling of excitement you get in the music, but I like a more mellow sound, so I'm going to go for 432 Hertz. So since I'm not using the Scalar program, I'm going to be using this one. This is called the Cleartune App, and it's available from the Google Play Store. You can install this on any Android device. This is my Samsung mobile phone. I've also got it installed on my iPod, and you can also install it on an iPad. So I'm going to talk you through how to use this, hopefully. So first of all, unfortunately I can't show you any screenshots. You press the little information button, and you can see that there, to get to your settings page. The very top thing says transposition C. Leave transposition at C. That simply means any note that you play will come out as you play it. It won't be transposed to another key. So just leave transposition set at C. Pitch pipe waveform, leave that at sine. That's a nice pure tone if you want to actually tune to a actual tuning tone. Needle dampening, leave that at high, so that's easier to tune because the needle that you're following doesn't wave all over the screen. The advanced setting, I've set A4, the A in the octaves on the piano, in other words, that's 432 Hertz. And please see my blog, Is 432 Hertz New Age Schmerz? That's on my website, ancientlyre.com. Interesting stuff. Then note, let's say temperament. The temperament I use is called their setting of Pythagorean just. Now, not to be confused with medieval Pythagorean tuning, which you can use on the Cleartune app as well, because in medieval Pythagorean tuning, that's actually a misinterpretation of the actual writings of Pythagoras. Pythagoras only used Pythagorean tuning, that's tuning in cyclically in fifths, for a tetrachord, that's the first four notes of a scale. Because very simple lyres in his time generally had around 4 strings. But if you extend that sort of Pythagorean tuning, stacking more and more fifths on top of each other, although the fifths sound more or less just, the thirds are quite dissonant because irrational number ratios result, eventually end up with wolf tones and all horrible things like that. So not to be confused, in other words, with medieval Pythagorean tuning. The tuning I'm using is called Pythagorean just. This is the nearest tuning I can find to the Ptolemy, I can't pronounce that, Ptolemy tuning, the just intonation generated by the Scalar program. I've also featured in a similar video. Now this thing, the temperament root, that's quite an interesting concept. In just intonation, the intervals vary depending on what mode you're actually tuned to. Now on this particular lyre, let's just talk you through the notes. The bottom note, instead of C, I'm going to be tuning it to B, but the actual mode is going to be the equivalent note intervals as D to D on the white notes of the piano, and that's called the ancient Greek Phrygian mode, a nice mournful sounding mode. So I need to transpose everything down a semitone. So instead of the actual physical note being D, it will be a semitone down from that, so it will actually come out as C sharp. So in this case, I want my temperament root set at C sharp. Oh, so I'm getting technical this. So I'm just going to do that now. We can work the app again on this thing. So temperament root going to be set at C sharp. There we are. Temperament root at C sharp. Okay, then I press the little back button and that takes me back to my little tuning wheel. Now for this example I'm going to actually use tuning tones. Let's see if I can do that. Let's tune, yeah, so you want it set on there. And that's generating the nice tuning tones. I hope you can hear that from where you are. I'm going to set it at C sharp. I think it's octave low in that one. Oh, more or less in tune, that's good. I'll just check that by just stopping the accidental. That gives almost a sine wave to match the sine wave I'm listening to. There we are, let's tune it C sharp. The next note I want in this mode is going to be D sharp. So I'll go up, although on the actual Cleartune app it comes out to E flat, it's the same thing, so D sharp or E flat, whatever you want to call it. And again, I'm lucky today, that's more or less in tune. Yes, that matches. And the next note up in this mode is going to be E. So there's my nice clear sine wave, E. A little bit sharp, just very slightly, so I'm going to just turn that down a bit. So nice and pure. I think we're just about there. And then the next note up from that one, where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4. There's E. This is F sharp, the next note. So coming out at F sharp. That sounds more or less in. Yeah, more or less in F sharp. And then we're going to go up to G sharp is the next one. or as they call it on the Cleartune app, A flat. I'm very lucky today, it seems to be more or less in tune. Ooh, nice pure sounding fifth in just intonation there. So that's G sharp or A flat as you want to call it. The next note up in the mode is A sharp or B flat as they call it in the tuning app. I'm very slightly sharp, so I'm just going to change that down a bit. Oh yes. Yep, I think I'm just about in there. Oh, another lovely pure interval in just intonation. Much more focused sound you get in just intonation than blurry equal temperament. So we're on, where are we? A sharp or B flat. The next note in the mode is going to be B. More or less there. I'm just checking a fifth down to see if it sounds nice and clean and pure. Maybe very, very slightly sharp, but I think I can live with that. The next one after that, which is B, is C sharp. So, see, I'll just, yeah, so here we are. I'll just rotate the little dial to get to the note, so there we are. That's just how you actually do it on the Cleartune app. Just a nice touch sensitive app. I'm very lucky that seems to be in tune. And the top note is going to be B. Is it C sharp? D, sorry. D sharp, I should say. It's very confusing this. So yeah, sorry, so the top note is D sharp. Much harder to tune the higher notes. That's more or less in. Just oh, that's nice and pure. So I'll just turn that off, and now you can hear some of these wonderfully nice pure intervals in this mode. Oh, and when you play notes in just intonation, there's hardly any beat waves. When you play a triad on the piano, you get these horrible beat waves because the notes are all slightly out of phase. The intervals, I should say. And it's like a sort of woo 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 sound you get, very subtle, it's like a shimmery sound. You don't get that in just intonation. Oh, nice and pure. So just to give you a little example to round off, here's a few bars of one of my own compositions called Ancient Visions. And speaking of ancient visions, I'm going to use an ancient plectrum. This is the wonderful replica 2,500-year-old plectrum made by Lyre, Ancient and Modern Music Instruments. And this is one of the lovely lyre straps in ancient Greek times called the telemon, perfect for holding any sort of lyre. The lyre I'm playing is one of my other favourite lyres by Marini-made harps called their Davidic harp, which is basically an evocation of the biblical kinnor, which was in fact the lyre played by my very own, very ancient Levite ancestors in the Temple of Jerusalem. I love roots music. Anyway, here's my own little composition, a few bars of Ancient Visions, and hear this wonderfully pure sound in just intonation. there's amazing things you can do with these amazing plectrums. That's another story altogether. For where to see one of these ways, to get one of these amazing plectrums and lyre straps, see my blog on my website ancientlyre.com about the Lyre 2 project, about my ongoing collaboration with Lutherios, ancient and modern music instruments. And you can get one of these things from their Etsy store. Anyway, I hope that's all made sense. So download the amazing Cleartune app and get into Just Intonation. It's very mellow. Bye for now.